natural therapist, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really looking forward to tonight and like to sincerely thank my staff because, you know, I'm not that good on the internet and there's a lot of work in presenting this type of material. I certainly love these topics and I became very involved in compounding way back, and that's how I developed the very first product in, I think, 1999. I mean, about 2000 with a patient, where I produced a product which is now in the NPM brand, called GMB, Glyco Nutritional Blend. I had a patient who was very cachectic, and basically everything was going through her. She was skin and bones, and we managed to put weight back on her and get her gut settled down, and it was really the beginning of a journey for me with nutrients like the base of the product was wheatgrass or barley grass, doesn't matter, but wheatgrass has probably got a little bit more research behind it. And from that, slippery elm, and I chose a specific probiotic back in that time that was extremely hardy, very a non-commensal, but a very good bacteria for countering diarrhea. We expect to bring that into our range very shortly. In the meantime, as far as probiotics are concerned, we haven't sort of chosen this platform tonight to talk about them, but you can also use in your compounding a product in the HealthScript range, which is the white label for clinicians only, a product called CytoPro, HealthScript CytoPro. CytoPro has 10 different types of flora in there, but the most wonderful innovation of recent times was how the microorganisms have actually become microencapsulated, and through their microencapsulated, it means that they're not actually damaged by even slight levels of moisture, because even herbs and powders and green foods and superfoods can actually have some moisture in them and some enzyme activity which can degrade the bacteria. So you can now use CytoPro into your compounding and just buy it as a product that's ready to go. It's 90 grams, it's a 3 gram serve, 30 billion microorganisms. It has 3 different species of bifida and has a prebiotic in there from the root of the it'll come to me in a second. Anyway, it's a galacto oligosaccharide, and that galacto oligosaccharide, Romania root, from Romania root, the galacto oligosaccharide can beef up the growth of bifidobacteria probably anywhere from 10 to 20-fold. So it's just an amazing product for practitioner prescribing. Anyway, we'll get on with the evening's proceedings and give you a bit more information on the different products. Look, this is only just a whet your appetite, because the thing about compounding, it's the same for when you're dispensing from your herbal extracts, that you're in a situation there where it's an art and a science. From tonight's information, we've given you a lot of references. Nearly all the ingredients, 99% of everything we've given you tonight is all referenced. That way you can hang your hat on it, I guess. Amanda's done a great job looking at all the references and making sure that everything stacks up. But really there's a lot of versatility in this, and I'm sure by the time you get to the end of it, you'll see where, from your own knowledge and your own experience, there's a lot of other things you can add in. What we want to do is we want to hear from you, because we've reached a point where we don't want to just keep shoving more ingredients into this extensive compounding range in Sunray. Sunray came on the market very many years ago. The first product that we put onto the market was a very high quality, and it still is one of the best colloidal silvers on the market today. And from that, Sunray was born. From that day forward, we've continued to turn Sunray into an ingredient supply company. We did have a lot of combination formulas. they've since been taken out and moved over to NPM or into the health script for a lot of reasons, so that we keep keeping the purity around Sunray being a raw material supplier. That means that we can have every product available for extemporaneous unit prescribing, whether that be a 50 mil, whether it's 100 mil, or whether it's a 500 mil, or it's a kilo, or whatever. The compounding range of the powders is a standard size of generally 125 grams and 500 grams. It enables you oftentimes with the 125 grams, basically the whole 125 gram container of slippery elm to your patient. That's your prerogative. Anyway, the main thing is that let's get on with the rest of the slides. Thanks, Emily. The compounding ingredients specifically for sports nutrition, I don't believe that we know enough about creatine and increasing muscle mass in the elderly and its potential role in Alzheimer's disease and of course in sports nutrition. We want to talk tonight about beta-alanine in sport and for endurance. It's quite a remarkable amino acid combo. Compounding ingredients for endurance, injury and joint recovery are compounding with Sunray Botanical Herbal Glycitrax. These are unsung heroes because, you know, obviously it's not a good thing either for people who are very much engaged in sport to be consuming necessarily alcohol extracts because of the complications and also it can be an issue with them with the sports bodies. The use of oxygen in sport for optimal performance. They're just the areas we're going to cover tonight. Next. In the compounding ingredients for sports nutrition, we've narrowed it down to this narrow range of products tonight because time permitting, there is certainly a lot more than that. So we're going to go over the BCAAs, creatine, dimethylglycine. Dimethylglycine was the major dipeptide that I put in that original formula for that lady with cachexia, and I'm still a massive fan of dimethylglycine. Dimethylglycine can break down to glycine, as we know that glycine is actually a very nice, generally semi-sweet amino acid. It's particularly good for the upper stomach, for the stomach and upper digestion. It's important to the production of glycine is important to the production of glutathione, and as I said, DMG is a major dipeptide for oxygen transport. And for a long time, sports people and racing greyhound trainers, and I've had some experience that in the past, and as well as horse trainers have used, even injected what they call vitamin B15. So this is actually known amongst that fraternity as vitamin B15. It's not calcium pangamate. Pangamate is actually is the dimethylglycine with an extra glucose on the end. That was used and probably releases a bit more slowly, but it certainly gets great results. And for your elderly patients that have got respiratory problems, specifically where the heart's labouring to get oxygen, then you need to be giving them some dimethylglycine in your formulas. We're going to talk about arginine hydrochloride. We also do have a number of other forms of arginine, which I'll touch on towards the end. Taurine, L-carnosine, N-acetylcysteine, choline, L-glutamine, trimethylglycine, which is a tripeptide of glycine, manganese citrate, potassium citrate, and sodium bicarbonate. Next, thanks. In the powders, we're going to go up over the beetroot, some spirulina. We have tianchi, the Panax nodo ginseng in powder form, wheatgrass powder, as I talked about. For joint recovery, primarily the glucosamine with MSM in an equal ratio. Glucosamine sulfate, I won't talk about that too much because we're favouring the glucosamine and MSM and the bovine tracheal cartilage. Bovine tracheal cartilage, incidentally, has all 22 amino acids. It's a phenomenal formula for people that are wasting away. And of course, as you know, it's a powerful anti-angiogenic agent. You'll find that also in the product called Lactofort. It's not a vegan formula, and I'm certainly glad I mean, if I took that out of the Lactofort, it wouldn't be a vegan formula. It would be a vegan formula, but it wouldn't serve the purpose because it's one of the most proven substances for angiogenesis. And that can also, in some instances, reduce swelling and inflammation. The herbals we're going to touch on tonight is Tianchi, as I said, Siberian ginseng. I'll give you the notes on rhodiola, but we were going to introduce rhodiola into our glycetrax, but it's been delayed. Withania, sarsaparilla, devil's claw, turmeric, ginger, and Australian mahogany. Next one. The BCAAs have shown to reduce mental fatigue, perceived exertion, and cognitive performance after exercise. It's thought that high serotonin may cause fatigue, and BCAAs competes with tryptophan for entry into the brain. A low BCAA to tryptophan ratio will facilitate tryptophan entry into the brain, forming serotonin, potentially causing fatigue. Just getting everything into balance. The BCAA will enhance performance in aerobic endurance activities. That's a reference study. And creatine has been shown in several studies to significantly increase the level of endurance and anaerobic performance in a variety of sports. I mean, it's the last tier of energy, as well as raising whole body creatine stores. Next one. Creatinine has been shown in several studies to significantly increase the level of endurance and anaerobic performance in a variety of sports, as well as raising whole body creatine stores. The thing that we only use a creatine called CreaPure. If you look up on the internet CreaPure, there's different grades of creatine. It is creatine monohydrate, but there's also mesh sizes and things like that, because some of the creatine can be poorly absorbed. And also, if you don't get CreaPure, we don't know what the process of it has been in making it. We pride ourselves on buying the purest of ingredients, no heavy metals, and they've been properly screened, and no irradiation either. None of our ingredients that ever enter into our manufacturing process have ever been irradiated, and we can't say that with a lot of the other companies that are out there, because especially even some companies that have got therapeutic licenses, they don't want ingredients on their, particularly herbal, and they don't want them in their factories unless they've been irradiated because of the micro. We'll micro after. The dimethylglycine, as I talked about before, increases glycogen, creatine, phosphate, phospholipid and total lipid content in skeletal and cardiac muscle, increases body tolerance to hypoxia. This is very, very important for people that are training in hot weather where they're sweating a lot, and oxygen uptake into the tissues. Reduces lactate production in exercise and improves circulation. Next one. Now, arginine, as you know, is a precursor to arginine, as you know, is a precursor to nitric oxide. What you're seeing in this crazy modern world of ours, you're seeing a lot of your patients as young as 40s on proton pump inhibitors, probably even some younger, but mostly from 40 onwards, they're getting all the issues with the so-called over-acid stomach. Now, the issue is that most of the time it's under acid. They're taking suppressive drugs, and of course, there's the beginning of even the opportunistic cycle where they may start to get raised blood pressure because of low NO. If they're in a significant element of oxidative stress, then that will be also exacerbated by superoxide cannibalizing even more of the nitric oxide, and then we have these missiles called peroxynitrites that rip the DNA to pieces, and we have a lot of aging and a lot of inflammation in various parts of the body, and you'll see this underlying low NO and high peroxynitrites in a lot of people that are obese, and we need to improve microcirculation. Arginine is really important to increasing microcirculation. Whenever you put arginine in a formula, it's also not a bad idea. We haven't gone into that tonight, but it's not a bad idea to throw a bit of lysine in. Lysine's also available. We have an old study from Korea where arginine pyroglutamate, which we also have as a raw material, but it's yet to go into the compounding range, but it's in a formula I'll talk to you about, at around 1,200 milligrams of arginine pyroglutamate in a serving, and it was around, I think, about 500-600 milligrams of lysine, actually increased the release of human growth hormone. The primary role of arginine is to stimulate the enzyme that starts the urea cycle, converting ammonia into less toxic compounds. this is sometimes this is the actual fog that's in people's brain. Urea, which is carried in the blood to the kidneys for excretion, has the potential to be ergogenic because it's substrate of nitric oxide synthesis, which is an endogenous vasodilator which can assist endurance capacity and blood flow. It's absolutely quintessential for good sports performance. NO's only is a gas that only has about a minute of life after it's produced, and so there has to be adequate arginine in the vascular endothelium. What can give you a longer window with arginine is citrulline. We're now using the ingredient citrulline malate. Assists in the release of human growth hormone, which positively improves muscle mass and strength. It really prevents the bagging and sagging. You can see it in the differences between people. You can see whether, in fact, whether they've got more prone to prolapses and such like. And obviously that can come from vitamin C deficiency and for other reasons. But to a prime extent, this is a very important essential amino acid. Arginine contributes to heart and muscle health and the maintenance of exercise capacity. Arginine contributes to the synthesis of creatinine. Next one. Now, this is a really interesting non-essential amino acid, and it's really valuable in sport. 1,000 milligram given 2 hours prior to a 3-kilometre run has been shown, and I don't know whether many of you knew this one. It has been shown to significantly improve endurance performance in a study conducted by Belshaw. This may be due to taurine's potential to improve neural function by exerting both inhibitory and excitatory influences in the brain. As you know, that a lot of your sports drinks and your V drinks do contain B vitamins and taurine. Gives those sports drinks a very distinct flavour. But mind you, they're just loaded up with other crap, artificial colours and other chemicals, excessive, not enough magnesium. Anyway, I won't go into that. It's also suggested that the extracellular taurine may potentially modulate calcium ion content, stabilise membranes, enhance neurotransmitter generation. Taurine can be compounded with potassium and magnesium to act as an electrolyte and is beneficial compound in those athletes suffering with cramps during and after training and recovery. Next one. Carnitine. In a lot of the non-powdered supplements, there is only a level in most of the ones that have food panels where you're only allowed to have 100 milligrams in a serving. And so as naturopaths, you've got the ability to bring your carnitine levels up quite high. It does add to the expense, of course, but there are many conditions, particularly important post-heart attack or post any sort of ischemia, to give higher levels of carnitine. For those who want to look into cardiac health, you can go to Dr. Sinatra. That's Dr. Sinatra. Dr. Sinatra, I met him. I got his book. I got his book signed many years ago at a conference in America. And he's a foremost cardiologist in the United States and really defied the medical profession a long time ago in helping people get better from cardiomyopathy and a range of heart diseases. And certainly carnitine was a significant part of his post-trauma treatments. It is needed carnitine is needed in the electron chain's role in oxidative and glycolytic muscle. Now, NAC. NAC, you probably are only using it mainly for metal detoxification and for some liver support. NAC has been shown to consistently delay whole body and muscle fatigue, improve the performance of the muscle limbs, and extend the time of failure during whole body exercise due to the increase in glutathione synthesis. So it's really, as opposed to putting in straight cysteine, you've got a little bit of a longer window with NAC. Choline is used to support muscle performance and stamina during exercise. Choline is part of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which stimulates muscle contraction, supporting muscle movement and performance. Choline losses can occur after only 1 hour of exercise. Most people's diet, unless they're piling in the sunflower lecithin, which we have available to you, if you don't want to use straight choline, you can use sunflower, which is choline, phosphatotyl choline, or choline bitartrate. You can actually get the phosphatidylcholine, I should say, by buying sunflower lecithin. And sunflower lecithin I recommend a lot, as well as I do mixing that with things like bee pollen and so on for sports performance. Next one. The problem with the bee pollen granules, the multiflora bee pollen granules, they don't really pre-mix well in a powder. You've really got to take it separately. I open the fridge every morning before I take my Ascorbamax and my other blends, and I have a heaped teaspoon of pollen granules. And I must say, I've got a fantastic prostate for a 70-year-old. And it's a real problematical area because it's the #1 killer of men, and the problem of prostatic enlargement and BPH and even prostate cancer gets greater as men get older. L-glutamine plays a role of transferring nitrogen between organs, maintains the acid-base balance during acidosis. It regulates the protein synthesis and degradation and provides a nitrogen precursor for the synthesis of the nucleotides. So it's really important at the repair of cellular level. As we know, it's also used in gut repair. It may have the potential to increase muscle strength, and it is needed as fuel for the lymphocytes and macrophages, which can be decreased by prolonged exercise, impairing the function of the immune system. And as we know, the glutamine is the only other energy source that the brain can use besides glucose. So it's really important that we use that in people coming off alcohol and other addictive substances. Next one. Trimethylglycine. What's happened here? I've got a slide up here and I've dropped off. Do I get back on? Okay, I'm back again. Wow. TMG, betaine, which is betaine, has been shown to improve the body composition, bench press capacity, and arm size in those that are resistant, that are resistance training. I don't think if you shop around the bodybuilding shops, I don't think you'll see very much of this. This is an unsung hero. Betaine has been shown to enhance power output and force production. Betaine supplements may affect exercise performance positively through favouring lactate and potentially fatty acid substance metabolism, certainly lowering lactate. Betaine increases lean body mass while increasing fat mass and body fat percentage. Betaine increases homocysteine metabolism by donating a methyl group to transmethylate homocysteine back to methionine. This allows for more efficient use of protein and increases nitrogen retention. This is, sorry about that phone ring. I don't know how that's come about. The betaine, as I said, I got to that. Betaine is shown to reduce increases of urinary homocysteine, thiolactone, the HCTL. HCTL has been implicated in vascular disease, insulin resistance, diabetic retinopathy, seizures, and Alzheimer's disease. As I said before, it was well known many years ago. The top horse trainers were giving this to their horses. We still have many doctors that are shy about testing patients for high homocysteine levels. Patrick Holford, in his book called The H Factor, which is a whole book about homocysteine, was very rigid in a lot of his attitude towards homocysteine as being a real villain, and he shows and talks about homocysteine actually being gradually increasing in people who have tumours that are growing, and when the natural therapies or the therapies were positive and the tumours were beginning to shrink, that homocysteine would come down. So it gives you an idea of how much oxidative stress is going on in the circulatory system when homocysteine is elevated. And of course, a lot of beneficial parts of our metabolism require a good methyl donation. So this is a very valuable tripeptide. Next one. Magnesium citrate. Look, I won't go into that because you probably magnesium out. It's the most heavily talked about mineral. But potassium citrate is not really available in much compounding that's out there in the for you to be able to source. Potassium is the primary positively charged ionic mineral in the intracellular fluid. In making up pre-electrolytes, this is your best form of potassium. It is a highly alkaline substance. It is a key mineral in the functioning of the sodium-potassium pump in cellular membranes. It's very easily absorbed, maintenance of fluid balance within the cells, normal blood pressure, and the transmission of nerve impulses and skeletal muscle contractility. Potassium is effective in retaining fluids ingested during recovery from exercise-induced hydration. I think we tend to forget about, apart from some of the garbage that's in the sports drinks, I think we actually really forget about potassium a lot of the time. The one thing that's important about potassium, yes, when it comes to pH balance, potassium is quintessential for pH balancing of the blood. If you'll go into acidosis faster than a speeding bullet if you become overheated and you have a lot of potassium loss, or you've got digestive problems, or your potassium assimilation is poor. But the other big one is when your patients are also B6 deficient and under a high stress load, because what the body will often do when there's low aldosterone, it will actually, you'll wind up peeing your potassium out under stress, and you'll retain sodium. And this is very common in a lot of people who do suffer from fluid retention. You get the B6 up, but you also should be looking at bringing the pH back into balance and using potassium citrate. And it's very, very, when there's major injury, big corking, and there's a lot of swelling in the muscles, around the muscle, I should say, then again, potassium citrate can be of great value, but it does increase energy. Next one. Sodium bicarb. We know the value of using the bicarb. It's particularly important after significant exercise. We have a number of these minerals in the NPM ACD buffer. I love that stuff. I have it very often in the morning if I do test my urinary pH. This is also important to give kidney support at post-exercise. It's been shown that 300 milligrams per kilo body weight mass, 120 minutes prior to exercise, will also significantly improve performance. So I have to leave this up to you, but at the end of the day, keep your patients alkaline, and they'll be able to perform at a much higher level. Remembering that we're going to talk about oxygen fairly shortly, remembering that we can't exchange oxygen if we've got an acid burden within the cellular matrix, so extracellular matrix. Next one. Good old beetroot powder. We're talking about arginine and citrulline for the nitric oxide function. At the end of the day, beetroot powder is really worth. It adds colour. It adds these sort of flavonoidal components. These other antioxidant components. It has that wonderful alkaline effect, and plus also the beetroot does contain betaine, so it's got a lot of benefits. It contains a high quality of inorganic nitrate, which has to be chewed, by the way. There's really less effect if you would just mix it up mix up a beetroot juice and just scull it down. Really need to slosh it around our mouth. It's converted to nitrate in the body by the mouth and stored and circulated in the blood. When there's low oxygen availability, nitrite is converted to nitric oxide. Nitrate can reduce the oxygen cost of exercise and potentially increase tolerance and performance. There is some carbohydrate in there of value too, because remember, it contains some fructose. NO influences muscle function and exercise function. It can modulate muscle function through its role in blood flow regulation, contractility, glucose and calcium homeostasis, and mitochondrial respiration and biogenesis. NO can influence the exercise performance through the regulation of blood flow and oxygen consumption. Become paranoid about making sure that your clients in this field have actually got enough NO. You might be athletes yourself. Next one. I often grate beetroot, and we we add to the beetroot a bit of apple cider vinegar and olive oil, a little bit of chili pepper, and that's actually chewed, possibly some sunflower seeds, maybe a bit of grated carrot, but these make good little side salads as well. It's not, there's benefits in eating the food as well as using it in functional foods. Spirulina is a photosynthetic cyanobacterium that is rich in essential amino acids, fatty acid, vitamin C, and E, and selenium. It's high in antioxidants such as phenolic compounds, blah, 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 blah. But it's also very important to glutathione peroxidase and to decrease lipoperoxidation. Anyway, look, I think we'll skip that because it's pretty straightforward. You should all know about spirulina, but it's a great way to add colour and enrichment, and also gives a nice flavour. I love the aftertaste with the right amount of spirulina in a compound. Next one. Now, the wheatgrass powder, as I said, we talked about earlier. The thing that's important with all these grasses, we only buy the Australian grasses. I think you're going to be finding now that 80% of products that are out there now that are being mixed up and blended in these superfoods that are in the supermarkets with wheatgrass or barley grass powders in them, whether they state them being organic or not, or USDA certified. This product is not USDA certified. It's ACO certified. It's Australian produced, 100% Australian produced. If we can buy raw materials in Australia that are organic, we buy them in preference to buy them from overseas, even though that might be costing us $8 or $10 a kilo more. We still make them very competitive to you. Derived from young grass of the common wheat plant, wheatgrass is shown to have powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory and immunomodulatory and anti-aging properties. Its anti-aging action has a beneficial effect on bone and joint tissue, reducing pain and swelling. There was a study many years ago, and we've lost the study, but it was actually put up against, a study was done with wheatgrass alongside of phenobutazole. Anyway, it was one of those anti-inflammatory drugs. There was a passing point where the actual wheatgrass actually won out at the end, where the drug wore off and then the wheatgrass kicked in. So it's not something that happens overnight, but it will outperform some of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories that are actually out there if it's used on a regular basis in reducing some of this excessive inflammation that can come about for a whole lot of reasons. As we know, apart from injury, a lot of our inflammation is generated from a leaky gut and a problem with our intestinal biome. So anyway, the wheatgrass certainly has a prebiotic effect where the gut is concerned. It can also help in gut healing, and that may be also part of its wonderful benefits. Next one, plus iron, plus chlorophyll. Now remember, when you're green inside, you're clean inside, and that means that if you're performing weights and things like this, and you've got to pass wind, well, no one's going to know. That you can keep it to yourself. Sunray compounding ingredients for sports nutrition. I've been a fan of TNC ginseng for 30 years. It's a perennial herb growing in southwest China. The root is most commonly used. It's widely used in treatment of bone fractures and soft tissues, having an anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. It's not as heating as your standard Panax ginseng, and which is probably a little bit more yang and perhaps a little bit more for people who are severely debilitated. TNC can be used to improve exercise performance and endurance, along with reducing delayed onset muscle soreness. The word TNC actually means gold. So it's better that they revered it more than they did gold. A single dose of TNC, 1,350 milligram per day, was shown to improve endurance time to exhaustion by more than 7 minutes. It's available in Sunray compounding as a powder and in the herbal glycetrax as a liquid. A topical poultice may be applied to damaged tissue, which may assist the healing of strains, sprains, wounds, and bleeding. Mix 4 grams with water to make a soft spreadable application, spread into gauze and secure firmly. Or get a comfrey leaf or a cabbage leaf and then just put that over the top of it and then bandage it up. Okay, next one. The thing about the TNG also, by the way, too, it's been known, it's been very commonly used in Chinese medicine to actually resolve clots. It's particularly beneficial when women have ovarian cysts, and there's also hormonal disturbances where there's a potential for clotting, and it has a dramatic effect on increasing oxygen transport and oxygen uptake into the cell. So what an incredible adaptogen in a herb that is not too cold and not too hot, just right, but not a breakfast cereal. Okay, next one. The glucosamine and MSM have chemoprotective and anti-inflammatory properties, providing effective management of inflammation and joint degradation. Glucosamine is shown to improve cartilage metabolism by suppressing type 2 collagen degradation while maintaining the synthesis of type 2 collagen. To understand the mechanism, the little bags of water, the little gel bags of water, like those little synthetic granules you put in the ground to actually hold moisture, is basically what these the gags, glycoamine glycans. These gags are really important for us to hold the moisture and create that flexible bag, the cushioning that's actually in our joints. Now, the role of the MSM, which is the 50-50 ratio, the MSM has a restorative but also a very protective effect around between the disc and the actual joint itself. Sulfur is extremely important to the synovial fluid and to pull toxins away from the joint and increase those lubricating liquids that are in and around the joint, the synovial fluid. And the MSM is also known to reduce the pro-inflammatory conditions of those micro blood vessels that feed in to the extracellular fluid around the joint surface between the joint and the disc. So you can bring down and increase joint repair with this combo. It's really, really important for you to think about putting that into your injury or joint management. Because of some of the ingredients that are not available yet in compounding, in MPM we have just this fabulous product called BJF, Better Joint Formula. And if you look that up on the Prima Life website, you'll see one of the best joint powders under the sun that you can use as a food. And I mix it with patients by adding Super B. The Super B liquid makes it extremely palatable and adds more choline and more B vitamins to it. And then we use the NPM Appease, which is an electrolyte cream or lotion. We put that on the outside of the joint, and if we have to, when there's not enough lubrication in the joint, as a topical sulfur transdermally, we'll also then use the Sunray DMSO, which is there as a compounding ingredient. So you can buy the DMSO in 200 mils or 500 ml bottles, and you can decant that down for your patient to put a few drops of that over and above whatever the ingredient is that you're trying to move into the joint, because remember, it's a very potent solvent. Next one. Watch out for, or listen out for, a podcast I'm about to do on pain management, and I'll be talking about those ingredients and how they work, and that might be something that your patients can also listen in on. The Sunray compounding ingredients for sports nutrition. We're talking about the bovine tracheal cartilage now. The bovine tracheal cartilage, is from grass-fed cattle, like a lot of the bone broths and so on. It's from grass-fed cattle. It's not imported. It's actually produced from Australian cattle. Has a very powerful effect on wound healing, joint health, and is an immunoregulator. As I said, it's a powerful natural. Pruden wrote a lot of studies on it being an antiogenic agent. It may be beneficial in treating osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, wounds, cachexia, and scleroderma. It's really high in these gags. It contains a vast amount of the GAGs, such as chondroitin, the glucosamine, and the type 2 collagen, which is shown to support collagen and elastin. And so it's an anti-aging ingredient. It's really, really important. And as I said, it's the digestibility of the whole 22 amino acids. So if your patient is failing due to levels of malnutrition through poor digestion and so on, you might want to also consider using this apart from powering up the sportsman. It contains 16% dry weight of chondroitin, approximately 80% hydrolyzed collagen, and comes from bovine spongy form free New Zealand cattle. Did I say Australian before? Yeah, well, yeah, we must get it. We used to get it from New Zealand. We now get it from Australia, and that's true. This is from an old study. Beg your pardon. Next one. Siberian ginseng is a very known, important adaptogen that you'll all know about. It's a great adaptogenic herb. It's again probably one of the coolest of the actual of the ginseng. A lot of the with the Eleutherococcus, they use all of the plant. It's not generally just the root. They'll use the top. The Russians were the ones that first really brought it to the fore in Olympic athletics, and because it's a powerful herb for endurance, and it's thought to be responsible for the ergogenic effects of ginseng. The ginseng has an antioxidant property that inhibits hydroxyl radicals and liver peroxidation, as well as facilitating mitochondrial activity during exercise. It's really valuable also for the immune system. It's been known out of pretty much all the ginsengs to be valuable when people who, post-flu, it doesn't sort of fuel up the viruses. It tends to give the immune system a good result in trying to bring the body's health back and bring the immune system up. And so I've actually even used this when my wife was having children, way back. My son's now 41. Way back when my son was born, the nurses in the hospital couldn't believe how quickly she recovered and how quickly her belly shrank and all that sort of thing. And she sort of just bolted out of the hospital because actually I'd been giving her some Eleutherococcus in the lead up to him being born, and also for the few days she remained in hospital, and when she came home to actually build her back up again. So it's a very important herb that can be used in the building process. And again, we have this in a non-alcohol form, which is purely the highest quality glycerine that you can get, and therefore you can take it prophylactically. You don't necessarily just have to take it as a medicine. Next one. I'll skip over rhodiola because I said we're not ready to give you the rhodiola, but you could use rhodiola from one of your own from your other herbal suppliers. Next one. Of course, good old Withania. This is probably now in sports, and also as far as this increasing problem we have in the world with 2 billion people on Facebook and high levels of anxiety. Anxiety and to a lesser extent depression, but anxiety is now probably one of the #1 problem in the world. And certainly ashwagandha is a very powerful strengthening type of ginseng, Indian ginseng. And so it's probably now become probably the most popular herb in the world. Maybe turmeric's in ahead of it, I don't know, but I think basically, in the sports world, there's just lots of variants around Withania, and it's available again in the glycetract, so it can be used both prophylactically and as a natural medicine. Next one. Sarsaparilla. I've used sarsaparilla in formulations for many years. It's not just a male herb, it's for females as well. It's a very, very good herb that grows in Mexico and Central and South America and Southern India. The parts are used for medicinal purposes are the roots and the rhizomes. This herb is traditionally used as an anabolic for enhancing performance in athletes and bodybuilders. It really does help to bring up the free testosterone. It's a good antioxidant herb. It's also a little bit of an ulcerative, so it does help with some of the blood purification and so on. And I highly recommend this in an adaptogenic formula. Next one for sport. Devil's Claw, we're not looking at Devil's Claw so much from its adaptogenic point of view. It's a really, really good healing herb. It's been around for a long time. It was in the Harpagophytum, was actually in some supplements many, many years ago. It's probably one of the first joint formulas that came out a long time ago, even before they started to put other herbs like turmeric and ginger and boswellia and so on. It's a native to the southern part of Africa, and the tuberous roots are used medicinally. It's commonly used in degenerative disorders of the musculoskeletal system. It's a powerful herb. It's a major constituent responsible for the anti-inflammatory effect in the montapine glucoside and the harpagoside. The harpagoside inhibits liposaccharide inducible nitric oxide and cyclooxygenase 2, COX-2 expression by a nuclear factor kappa B suppression, therefore inhibiting inflammation. A lot of words, but you get the drift. It's a powerful in support to reduce and also help remove inflammation from the joints and help the joint repair. So we're not talking about a suppressive process. We're talking about a regenerative process, and that regenerative process is to bring back balance. This is a marvelous herb to use for joint health. It is also in the BJF as a powder. This mechanistic action could also be partly responsible for the analgesic and chondroprotective effect that the herb has. If you haven't used it, get to know Harpagophytum. It's really, really important. Next one. And we have it in a glycetrac. Boswellia. Now, there's not a lot of boswellia around in extract form. We can't offer it to you in a glycetrac form because it's a resin. We have the boswellia we have is in extract form, but it's more potent than just the plain boswellia powder. That's what we tend to use. We use an extract powder, but it separates out really quickly. Even you need to actually have it in upwards of 80% alcohol to keep the waxes actually soluble. So it's not that good a herb to use in an extract. We certainly can't put it in a glycetrac. Boswellia, that is certainly available to you as a herbal powder for you to mix up for compounding. Boswellia is a branching tree native of India, contains oligogum resins, and most active is the boswellic acid. It's crept a lot into the retail products now that you'll find in chemists in the joint formulas with the glucosamine and the turmeric. Boswellic acid is an effective anti-inflammatory, having chondroprotective effects due to its powerful inhibitor of 5-lipooxygenase, the 5-LOX, the key enzyme in the synthesis of leukotrienes from arachidonic acid in the inflammatory cascade. Boswellia can inhibit the pro-inflammatory cytokines, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and interleukin-1 beta. Boswellia significantly improves joint function at 250 milligrams per day. This is great. A low dose. It's very effective. I think ours powder is about 4-to-1. It reduces pain in as little as 1 week of starting the treatment. Boswellic acid, which we haven't put in here, is very, very beneficial in helping to shrink brain tumours. And I will find the reference if you need that. Boswellic acid reduces the level of the enzyme that degrades cartilage and the matrix and metalloproteinase 3. It is safe for human consumption, even long term. That's important to know, that you can use this over a long period. Again, we don't have it in a glycetrac, but it's available to you as a powder. Next one. I won't go into the turmeric. You should all know how wonderful and how important that is. We do have it as a separate ingredient, and we will look at how we're going to deliver it. We do have C3, which is 95% curcumin, and we're looking at how we're going to be able to deliver that out to you as well. Suffice it to say that we have a very, 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 very high-grade turmeric, and we have a lot of customers have been using that for a lot of years, because before we started to putting it into the smaller sizing compounding, we had a lot of clients buying it in the 1 kilo bags, which is still available to you, and you could be looking at using that quite versatility of that in a lot of your compounding formulas. So you can look at the 1 kilo container sizes are not in the actual the jars for compounding, but you can order the 1 kilo and we'll get it to you very quickly. Okay, that's just in the standard Sunray Health range. Okay, next one. Ginger, again, I don't need to spend any time on that. It's just an incredibly important herb. Remembering that it contains an essential oil, which is 1 to 3%, and that's really important also as a catalyst for all the other herbs. So ginger and cayenne and perhaps even golden seal are probably some of the most important catalysts of herbs that we could ever use. And so we get more bang for our buck, and we get a bigger and more beneficial reduction in inflammation. Now, the whole thing is we think, well, ginger is a hot herb, but it's actually been found to move some of the heat out of the liver, as long as you don't overdo it. So, ginger is a mover and a shaker. So it's really important to think about putting that in to a tolerable level. It's very reasonably pleasant to use the ginger from the glycetract because of the balance of the ginger extract along with the glycerine. So we get phenomenal compliance. I've got some practitioners that have gone completely over from where, unless we don't have the herbs available, they've gone completely over to just using glycetracts exclusively in their practices. And we haven't done a really fantastic job in marketing, by the way. We're starting to get back on the horse because we've been sort of rejigging certain products and trying to build the Sunray compounding range. But now we're going to focus a lot more on how we're going to expand out the range of glycetracts. So it's there for you to. We welcome your inquiry. We welcome if you're a major user of a particular herb and we don't have it, let us know, and we'll see what we can do to put that product into the glycetract range, to put that herb into the glycetract range. Next one. The Australian mahogany. It's a herb that we've been excited about it for a long time. The mahogany is in the remedy or the supplement we market called Polyvital. Polyvital, the whole concept of it being a high polyphenol product primarily comes from the Cahea senegalensis. This is they call it a native of Africa, but the mahogany trees have been broken down extensively in Africa. There's not a viable source of mahogany bark from Africa, and largely what happened when the AIDS epidemic kicked off many moons ago, it went on the bush telegraph like a bushfire, and basically people were out there ring barking the trees just to get the bark to make the medicine because it's such a powerful herb. And we get our bark. We don't use the leaves and seeds readily. The quality of the bark we get is so good. It's so rich and so purple that those polyphenols are the very reason that tree can sit up there in the Northern Territory. It's from a sustainable forest. It can sit up there in the Northern Territory and it can get bombarded by all the insults from the environment, from the heat and the humidity, and particularly the insects, and it can sustain itself. These are these natural insecticides that have very powerful antioxidant powers, and as a result, lower oxidative stress on a big level, reduced liver stress. Its main constituents include fatty acids, carotenoids, the coumarins, the amidols, the tannins, the steroidal glycosides, the flavonosides, this very little carbohydrate, saponin, sterols, and triterpenes. It exerts a powerful anti-inflammatory effect via the inhibition of the COX-2 enzyme. And the most fantastic thing about this, it also has great effects on a number of inflammatory skin diseases. So if you're making up a formula for someone with psoriasis, think about putting in maybe 10 to 20% of the Australian mahogany. Next one. The role of creatinine in increasing muscle mass in the elderly and its potential in Alzheimer's disease. The creatinine has the power to actually increase hydration into the brain. Or something else I'd like to say too is that when you're using the formulas of putting the herbs together to make up the sport formulas using the glycetrax, glycerine actually allows water to become a better hydrator. In other words, the body wastes less water, believe it or not, when there's a percentage of glycerine in the water. So it's phenomenal for long distance athletes to actually have these non-caffeinated herbs in their water. There's a few herbs too that I've used at different times. I said we only wanted to whet your appetite, but there's also, if you're looking at building up testosterone and increasing libido, you've got Damiana and you've got Tribulus. They're actually also available in the glycetrac. You have, we can give you down the track on request, we can give you a fenugreek that's a 50-to-1 in a powder, but we also have fenugreek in a 1-to-2. That helps to also boost up the estrogen side of the hormones. The Gotu Kola is a wonderful, powerful adaptogen, and if you want to really increase overall well-being, you might want to throw some Gotu Kola in there. Gotu Kola is also a bit of a cousin of Polygonum. We also have Polygonum, which is faux tea, and that's the faux tea is Ho Shi Wu. The black hair man was supposed to have lived to 400 years old, and so Polygonum is another an adaptogenic herb. The problem we had that the information around Polygonum, we just couldn't pick up any scientific studies. I'm not saying they're not there, we just couldn't pick them up, so we didn't put the Polygonum in there into the formula. Yeah, but again, if you want to not wind up with completely white hair, it's not a bad idea to throw some Polygonum in there. The other herb that is invaluable for sports, of course, is yellow dock, because yellow dock is an unsung hero, but yellow dock also is a very rich source of iron and can reduce a lot of spontaneous inflammation in mucous membranes and things like this. It's a very good alterative. So I've put in past formulas for athletes, I've actually put yellow dock into some of the formulas. And of course we have white willow. Oh, the power just went off. We have white willow bark in there as a natural aspirin for pain relief. When you're using the liniment called appease, you can actually work out injuries. You can put them on, even though there's a mild injury and there's some pain and stiffness. You can actually work out the injury. You can actually play sport by rubbing the appease on those joints. The creatinine is a naturally occurring amino found in vast amounts of red meat and seafood. It's stored in skeletal muscle, the remainder of the brain, and cardiac muscle. It's believed that creatine plays a key role in skeletal muscle metabolism, with research showing that creatine supplementation increases concentration of extramuscular creatine. The loss of muscle mass and muscle performance occurs as we age, contributing to cachexia, bone loss, and fragility, with negatively affects the ability to perform daily activities. As I said, it's really important for anaerobic metabolism. So it brings in that last amount of energy. That's that last spurt. So if you're competing in short distance activity, you may want to think about that as well. It certainly has an incredible role, and look into it in its role in helping rehydrate the brain. Dr. Abram Hoffer, who was one of our first orthomolecular nutritionists in the world, he used a lot of nutrients to improve the dementia patients in his hospital. They used to have to drink a glass of water every hour to try and rehydrate the brain, because he was adamant that in fact dehydration was one of the major causes or one of the contributing factors to Alzheimer's disease. And of course, if you don't have the minerals in there, how do you retain the water? And of course, the creatine actually helps to improve the brain's rehydration. In terms of bioresearch Formula 12 also has NATMER in it, in multipotency. That's also important, and to maintain proper fluid levels at a cellular level. Next one. 10 drops of that first thing every morning. The role of creatinine in increasing muscle mass in the elderly and its potential role in Alzheimer's disease is shown that creatinine used in conjunction with resistance training may be effective in reducing age-related muscle mass. Creatine has been shown to improve bone mineral density, really important, and indices for bone biology. Creatine has been shown to have a protective effect against oxidative and nitrosive stress induced by glutamate. I'm getting a bit tongue-tied, sorry about that. Therefore, creatine may be beneficial in the management of Alzheimer's disease and other neurological diseases that are associated with excitotoxicity and oxidative stress. By the way, too, if you're looking for strontium as a mineral for bone regeneration, it's available in Queensland for Queensland Sole Trader, and certainly we welcome your inquiries because we can supply you with the powder. It's not in the compounding range, but it'll be something we'll look at in the compounding range. But you know, we'll just try and adjust to help you out if you give us an inquiry. We'll tell you yes or no if we can help you, but we want to communicate with you. Next one. Creatine has been shown to be protective of rat hippocampal neurons when exposed to beta amyloid toxicity. As you know, the beta amyloid is the plaque that forms primarily in the brain. We think it also can be associated with some parasitic load and also heavy metal load. Creatine is involved in the conversion of ATP to ADP, adenine diphosphate, and vice versa, and is often susceptible to high levels of oxidative damage in the Alzheimer's patient's brain. Creatine kinase activity is reduced by up to 86%, and creatine kinase protein expression by 14% in Alzheimer's disease. This indicates lower levels of phosphocreatine in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's disease. Sunray compounding creatine which is CreaPure, can be found in our amino acids range and comes in either 125 gram or 500 gram. Next one, please. Beta-alanine, which I think is very exciting that we've got this amino acid. You find it on the shelves of some of your bodybuilding shops, but not widely used enough in naturopathic practice. Beta-alanine is an amino acid with the amino group at the second position from the carboxylate group. It is a substrate of carnosine, which is a key contributor in the buffering of hydrogen ions during high intensity of exercise. Carnosine is very common in a lot of anti-aging ingredients. It is formed in the body during the breakdown of uracil and thiamine. These are your nucleotides, used orally as ergogenic to improve athletic performance and exercise capacity by delaying fatigue. This can be a positive effect on reducing body fat. Beneficial to build lean muscle and to build lean muscle mass. You know, it's really showing up phenomenally for long distance athletes. It has a tremendous beneficial effect. I just ask you to look into the use of beta-alanine. There's a lot of stuff on the internet, and we've got a really good pure substance there. And one of the things, I'll actually wait until I get to the oxygen bit, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how you can use beta-alanine in another way for your compounding. Next one. Beta-alanine improves physical function in the elderly. Beta-alanine can be used in conjunction with creatine or sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate is shown to neutralize the acids that anaerobic metabolism creates. Beta-alanine and sodium bicarbonate taken before exercise with a short duration of intense activity, delayed fatigue, improving performance in the athletes. All the studies are there. Beta-alanine has been shown to have a significant ergogenic effect on high intensity exercise when it lasts between 1 to 4 minutes. Next one. So what we've actually got, we're back to these compounding ingredients for endurance and recovery. And now we'll flip over to the next slide and show you how to put something together from some of those ingredients. So here's a rough formula. Look, what you can do with these is, this is not necessarily the be-all end-all, but just using some of these performance ingredients, there's the sort of levels you're going to get performance from those levels. So that gives you a 5 gram serve. That doesn't mean you can't put that into a 30 or 40 gram serve with your proteins and your green barleys, and well, we've got wheatgrass in that formula anyway, because you need something as a bit of a carrier to smooth it out. And so you've got a situation there where with some of those ingredients we've covered. One of the things that's really important with BCAAs, if you haven't been in the sports arena, I mean, many years ago I trained some of the big bodybuilders that were competing in Mr. Olympias, going back a long, long way when I was a sort of young budding fitness fanatic myself. And the branched chain amino acids you get also from your whey proteins, because these are the amino acids that are a bit like your mother's milk. They're very, very important in muscle recovery and energy recovery, and that can be beneficial also in brain fatigue, as we said earlier. So the beneficial time, often time to take BCAAs, or if you're not a vegan and you're drinking whey protein, is to actually take it within the first half an hour of when you're finishing exercise. It does actually help to regenerate the energy in the muscles, and that's also important in actually the rebuilding of the muscle, so that then all your other sulfur-containing amino acids, your arginine, your lysine, and so on, can come in and actually do the complete repair job. You need energy before you repair. So we've got that formula there for you. It's just a bit of an indication of, you can make that as a premix. So you make that up as a premix, and then you've got that to give to your patients to add to their protein, their particular protein formulas, because there's a lot of other good ingredients, and they might want to have some raw cocoa. They may want to, we have a wonderful product called Mega 8, which is also, we've got products that are in premixes in our what we call clean skins. These are clean skins that you can put your own label on. We're really got a growing business of clients out there that want actually to take products from our clean skin range and put their own label on it. And certainly that Mega 8 is a good one. It contains goji berry and camu camu and raw cocoa and spirulina and chlorella. So it's a beautiful flavoured product, and I put that in with my Ascorbamax every morning. We'll show you those two, the formula of Ascorbamax, and we'll show you the Arginac, which is another pre-made formula we have, but we don't have all the ingredients that are available in Arginac yet into the compounding range, because there's a process and it takes time. And we put some of them in there. They may or may not sell, but you let us know if you need them. But Arginac is a new formula, as a wonderful premix for you to take, especially at the end of the day. I'll tell you a bit more about it when I hit that slide. Next one. So in injury, many sporting enthusiasts experience pain injury at some point. You just got to get a bit older and you'll hurt yourself. I hurt my back quite significant recently, and it's been quite a job to get right. The older you get, I am getting better. During their training, providing relief is imperative for these patients. I'm a weekend warrior, and weekend warriors are people who, I have a small farm, and so at my age I'm still doing things, and if I can't find someone to help me lift something that's really heavy, I usually try and find a way to lift it, but sometimes that can be a bit perilous. Adequate protein consumption is imperative in sporting injuries, as low protein will impede wound healing and increase inflammation. So remember that, because a lot of your patients, even your patients that malabsorb food, can have inflammation just simply because they're amino acid deficient. Your branched chain amino acids, one of them, leucine, has been shown to increase protein synthesis and muscle protein synthesis, therefore beneficial in ameliorating muscle loss. This is also important in that kinase activity for actually burning fat and increasing lean muscle. The branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and valine, attenuated nitrogen loss during bed rest. So you know, these can't be ignored. You know, we think that down the track there'll be a greater emphasis on free amino acids than what there will be on these completed proteins like your pea and your rice and your whey. I think we're going to have to boost these formulas up a lot more with these much more easier to digest amino acids. Next one. Creatinine shown to decrease the incidence of muscle atrophy in muscles that are immobilized. Remember, the brain's a bit of a muscle. That's why we're talking about it before. Branched chain amino acids have been shown to significantly increase collagen synthesis in the skin, and yet it's not in a lot of the modern formulas. They just tend to put proline and hydroxyproline and hydroxylysine in these formulas with a bit of copper and vitamin C, or they're using the marine collagen peptide. The marine collagen peptide certainly is a good form of collagen precursors. But anyway, you've got the information there for you to be discerning from. Glutamine and arginine are also key amino acids in the synthesis of collagen, along with their ability to significantly increase muscle and lean mass. Now, remembering, of course, is that when you come back to this NO story, the NO story is really important as anti-aging, because again, what's going to suffer preferentially is your peripheral circulation and feeding those nutrients into the skin. If you've got high peroxynitrates and you've got higher blood pressure and you're cannibalizing your NO, or you haven't got the precursors there for NO. Arginine can be beneficial before and after surgery and can accelerate the healing process of broken bones. Its wound healing ability may be due to its human growth hormone increasing properties and its role in nitric oxide production. As I said, the most preferential form of arginine to cross the blood-brain barrier is arginine pyroglutamate, which is in the Arginac. Next one. Consuming vitamin C is crucial in the recovery of injury, including muscle disuse. It's important in hydroxyproline synthesis, which is necessary for collagen formation. High-dose oral vitamin C has been shown to significantly accelerate the healing of ruptured tendons and is needed in the enzymatic synthesis of proteoglycans that are found in tendons. Look, there's still half the population and more out there say, oh, look, I eat enough fruit and vegetables, I don't need more vitamin C. And yet, yeah, the vitamin C is lost in hours, let alone maybe 10 to 11 days once it's been stored. And where do they get their food? Out of the ground. I mean, this is the most significant thing, is this subscorbutate disease. It's plaguing everyone, even bone diseases. Using sunray compounding DMSO in conjunction with the NPM appease can be beneficial topically solution for muscle injury, which is what we're going to talk about when we do the next podcast. Next one. So we're over time. The Tianzi Ginseng. So that's just a summary of the glycitrax, which we've been over. Next one. And so now we've given you some formulas using the glycitrax. One for performance. This is just a base. You've got Tianzi Ginseng, Siberian Ginseng, good ratios, and the sarsaparilla. You could again add more to that. As I said, if you're looking at someone who's a long distance athlete, you probably need to put some yellow dock in for his iron. You can look at, particularly I think the other one that we probably didn't really talk about was licorice root, because a lot of these athletes suffer from adrenal fatigue, and the glycitrac is exceptional with the licorice. In joint recovery, you know about these herbs, but that's a good little base formula for you to again. You don't have a problem in also putting the glycitrac mixes into an alcoholic formulation that you like. If you wound up with 60 or 80% of your glycitrax and 30 to 40% of your alcohol extracts, because those alcohol extracts you like, or they've been made available, or you want to put some horsetail, because that also is a supply of silica for your joints and so on. You may be looking at some kidney herbs, which are really important post-performance. In any event, the only thing why we would never put alcohol and glycerine together is because they will degrade fairly quickly. But you're pretty safe making a formula up for a patient with them mixed together for at least probably 6 to 8, maybe 12 weeks that the patient will consume that. But if they did sit on the shelf and the person wasn't using it for a reasonable length of time, there'll be some degradation. So I think that was an important message to get out to you, because practitioners are just choosing either non-alcohol or alcohol herbs. They can be mixed together. the more glycetrax you use, the higher your compliance will go up, especially with children. And it's also safer for children as well. Next one. The use of oxygen in sport for optimizing performance. Look, I've done quite a lot of seminars on the oxygen. Suffice it to say, we don't breathe more oxygen when we supplement oxygen. I'll leave that for you to have a read and get up to date, because as I said, we've run pretty much out of time. The main thing is that when we all got a lot of sticky stuff in our blood, and when we imbibe Doxymed, I never go much less than 5 ml. It's particularly valuable in sleep recovery. It improves the liver's detoxification and the P450s in the liver when you consume it before going to bed. It helps relieve sleep apnea. When you're drinking oxygen and boosting redox, what's actually happening is that your body will fuel up the immune system from oxygen being in the plasma. You'll pass the stabilised oxygen electrolytes through the stomach mainly, and to some extent the small intestine. Your body's redox enzyme catalase comes out with a vengeance to break the oxygen down, and what we get then is we get a level of singlet oxygen, but that singlet oxygen is still controlled by these antioxidant enzymes. They become more bioavailable. They come out of the epithelium, and we actually wind up with actually more oxygen for the neutrophils. We wind up with more of that sticky stuff being broken down. We wind up with more of the anoxic gases like carbon monoxide being turned into carbon dioxide and being breathed out. We actually breathe more oxygen in. We slow the heart rate. My pulse, because I take oxygen regularly, sits somewhere between 65 and if I get excited, it might get up to 70 if I'm lucky, apart from when I'm actually engaging in exercise. And I have as I said, I have a resting pulse, and I'm not an athlete, but generally probably in the low 60s when I'm relaxed. And my PO2 levels nearly on a oxygen meter sit around the 97 to 98, but more often 98 to 97. And that's what we want. Because if we don't have that, we've got sticky blood, and we've got stale blood, and we have all this fibrin that starts to build up in the blood, which becomes even more related to liver stress. We get all these spicules in our blood, and the blood is stodgy. So taking oxygen it increases our ability to actually recover more oxygen, and our respiratory oxygen rates actually go up. It elevates the pH of the blood very quickly. It reduces acid stress within the blood. So there's a good read there on oxygen. What I'm going to suggest to you from a compounding point of view is you think about putting some amino acids in with the oxygen. Now, you need to not overload it, but if you took a 200 milliliter of Doxymed and you can put 5 grams of dimethylglycine into that bottle and give it to that patient. It's a way of, and that could be a heart patient, or that could be also a performance athlete. Next one, please. Yeah, look, again, we've just sort of run out of time, but it's an easy read. Next one. This is the product I'm talking about. The Suntory sports trial demonstrated that by placing 6 ml of diatomic oxygen in the mouth, now their product was only about 5% VV. Doxymed is 15% VV. So it's got 3 times more oxygen than what was in that study. The partial pressure of oxygen increased by approximately 5% for up to 2 hours. Doxymed's aid in elevating oxygen saturation in the blood at a cellular level, not because we gain more oxygen at cellular level. We actually made the blood move quicker, and we moved the crud from the blood very quickly. And there's also an energetic effect. There's a biophotonic effect. Doxymed can be put into a glass of water. You can't pre-mix it, but you can also, because it's alkaline, you can also put 12 to 15 drops of polyvinyl in there if you want a really, really quick surge of energy. it's again will change the blood in minutes. You can look at. We do have a study that we can send out to you. That's on. Sorry, not a study. There's a YouTube clip on the bloods before and after using Polyvital as an alkaline supplement, but also as a redox supplement that you can use, and you can use it in conjunction with Oxymed. Dimethylglycine can be consumed in conjunction for an increase in athletic performance. Next one. Now, this is just a rundown, as I said, on the bioactive Ascorbimax and the Arginac. These two products are available currently in the HealthScript Arginac is available nationally. The bioactive Ascorbimax is only available in Queensland. It's a Queensland sole trader product. But you can have, doesn't matter where you are, you can have these products for your own compounding by virtue of buying them as what they call clean skins. So when you put your order in as a clean skin, you can either put the label on yourself and you can compound with them, or you can actually have your own label produced by our graphics lady, Kirsty, and we've got a template for your labels, and you can actually have a whole variety of products up under your own label, which again helps you to control what you give out, give your patients the best quality products that are available, and you know that you're going to get a lot of good performance enhancement having these wonderful products. On the Arginac, you look at the Arginac formula and go, wow, that's an unusual formula. I haven't seen anything like that before. It's designed to actually improve the release of the HGH. This is actually part of the activation is remembering that HGH is a very complex amino acid formula as a pituitary hormone. The major factor is that we believe that as we get older, we store up the human growth hormone, but we don't release it readily. And it's insulin growth factor 1 that's really important, a much simpler hormone, a steroid, natural steroid that actually helps release human growth hormone. This is a very important opportunity to actually lose weight while we sleep. It really does work. It originally came out, the original formulation that came out just with the arginine pyroglutamate and the lysine was actually called Sleep Away. What we've done is we've modified that formula to give you all the benefits of post-sport recovery and to grow lean muscle mass, but also can be used in cycling out the weight. And so here we are continuing to research and develop, and we want to hear from you. We don't mind criticism. We'll put it to work and try and continue to make things better so you can have a successful practice and we can have a long-term relationship with you. Next one. So here's your webinar specials for tonight. We've got a generous 20% off the compounding range, and there is I think if you talk to the order people, there is also a book, a compendium for compounding, and there's 20% off the botanical glycitrax. That's the whole range. There's 20% off the Dioxymed, and there's also 20% in Queensland off the Ascorbimax, or if you want to buy that as a clean skin. And look, we've actually seen some remarkable artwork from the practitioners that submit their artwork for the clean skin products. So they really have a wonderful looking supplement to hand out that depicts who they are. And you know, I guess if someone's coming into your kitchen for a coffee and they see the Scorba Pro or whatever you might want to call it, and they go, what's this? And they say, well, this my naturopath prescribed this for me. It's very prestigious and does actually get you referrals and protects you from the discount chemists and the online sellers and so on. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. It's really hard with these things just to know exactly how long they're going to make, and you know, I'm Mr. Ad-lib, so I've wound up going over time, and I apologise for that. This is a recorded webinar, so you can listen to it at your leisure subsequent to tonight if you missed anything. And I hope you read up on the oxygen. I really believe we need to sometimes use the oxygen in heroic amounts. If I was going on the football field and I was going to be running on that football field, every time I had a glass of water, I would actually want to have at least 10 to 20 mil of dioxymat in that drinking water. And it's just remarkable how much impact it can actually have on your sports performance. And again, for bike riders that are riding at high altitude, I had a dream one day, because as such, this is the best oxygen supplement I believe that there is and for the practitioners to prescribe in the world. I sort of had this view that basically we would have people riding in the Tour de France, actually using our dioxymat, because really at the end of the day, they clearly wouldn't be as prone to be wanting to use steroids as they've had in the past, and they've had to clean up the sport because they're riding at high altitudes, and this is so beneficial. Anyway, thanks again. Have a great night, and we'll catch up soon.